Welcome to a new episode of Shell Talk, where we're going to be getting right into the beginning of where Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles began with the original 3 issues of the series, as well as the very first micro series that they did. Well, let's get right into it. All right. Well, you know what? This is where Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles began. So this is starting our sort of, I guess, series within our series here, where we talk about the different original Turtle comics, specifically the Turtle comics that both Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird worked on. As we'll get into it a bit later, but this is though, like I said, we're just talking about the beginning of where Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles began. So let's just get right on into it. I don't think there's much to say before it, just because it's where it all began, right? The original comics that Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird worked on, where issue 1 begins with the Turtles' introduction as they're fighting the Purple Dragon Street Gang.
Which didn't they show up in one of the movies?
I don't remember that name didn't sound familiar, but you're also more familiar with like the movies than me, because I've only very casually watched the movies. I don't know. I think it'd be interesting to really revisit the movies later on in this.
Agreed.
But,
Agreed.
But anyway, back to the comic though. They were beating up the Purple Dragon Street Gang. If you remember Purple Dragon Street Gang, be sure to let us know down below though, and like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff while you're at it as well. The Turtles, after beating up the Purple Dragon Street Gang, they then go into the sewers where we meet Splinter, who then tells his origin, where he was just this rat who's owned by Hamato Yoshi of the Foot Clan, who'd practice ninjutsu, and Splinter would copy, which was quite adorable.
It is adorable to see. It reminded me of watching the cartoon back in the day, because they kept that part pretty.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that was good. Anyway, Yoshi then fled to New York City, where he after he killed another member of the Foot Clan, and the victim's brother wanted revenge, and so jump forward 15 years, where it turns out that brother became Shredder. And that's where, yeah, exactly. Who then went to New York City and successfully got his revenge with murdering Yoshi. We then see Splinter escapes during that commotion of the fight between them two. Splinter escapes, and then shortly after that, we see that there's an accident involving a can of ooze breaking a glass jar of turtles that goes down a sewer, where Splinter then follows, and that's as we know it from there. Splinter then fathers and teaches the turtles ninjutsu, and that's how they become the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and that's Leonardo, Donatello, Raphael, Michelangelo. That's how they come about.
Stop mentioning Michelangelo last.
I know
you
right?
do that
Terrible,
on purpose.
Terrible.
You do it on purpose. Please do.
But what I find interesting here is, and because I don't exactly remember Splinter being this way exactly in any of the on-screen stuff, is he gives them a mission right after this.
Yeah,
he gives them the mission to kill Shredder, where it's like, well then, okay. And that's the big thing too, is like these comics, like they're not kitty, all this stuff. It does get violent. In a bit too. When you get to the action scenes, they're really cool drawn too. And it's all black and white originally too, and that's how we read them, as these ultimate black and white versions. They did go back and do it in color, which is like interesting to see, but like it's not the same when it's meant to be black and white.
Yeah,
and it really works too. Like it's a cool way of like it's black and white, and just stylistically it's cool with them. But anyway. After that, we see Raphael infiltrates Shredder's HQ to leave the calling
messenger.
card. He's the messenger, which is done successfully, and also disrupting a meeting that Shredder was in the middle of that caused a bit of commotion there.
You forgot to tell people what the calling card was.
Well, like he just threw his
No, it was beating up a guy. He goes, "There's my calling card."
Well, that's the thing. Well, he beat up those guys, but they threw the.
I know he threw the note, but he says, "There's my calling. I gotta leave a calling card."
That's
there
true.
It is.
He did do that though. You're right. But yeah, following night, the Turtles face off against Shredder and the Foot. So we see, and this is where like we really see the action, like which is fantastic. You know,
yeah, that big panel page.
Yeah, there's an awesome spread of when the battle begins. The Turtles against all the different Foot Clan as they come, because they're battling on like this rooftop, right? And so you see the rooftop there, and they're all coming up and over, which is really cool. The big battle lickers, the Turtles do take down all the Foot that's there, and then they face off against Shredder, who's initially beating them up, but then they end up overwhelming Shredder and winning. They offer him a chance to redeem his honor by committing seppuku, but then Shredder pulls out a thermite grenade, which Donatello reacts to, pushing him over the ledge off the building, which then the grenade then explodes.
And they think killed him.
Yeah, well, that's the interesting though. Is originally this was just one issue, right? Like you have to keep in mind this. When they just formed. What was their studio's name? Was it Mirage or is that something?
It was. It'll probably say.
I don't remember, but whatever their studio name was, Eastman and Laird, like they just formed it, and this was the first issue that they did. And what's really cool about it is this is their first ever published comic, and it sold out of their initial printing of 3,000 copies, which is awesome. And you know, for just to get right into the indie business, yeah, okay, Mirage is what I thought it was, but yeah, so like they had success with this right out of the gate, which is not unheard of, but really rare, which is awesome. You know,
I feel like they definitely had a lot of inspirations.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna start with Marvel because, and I'm gonna start with that Easter egg I mentioned because of Daredevil and that kind of street level, kind of ninja type character. Now, if you've read this comic, let us know in the comments if in issue 1 you think that the story of the ooze also hitting a kid in the eyes is not a Daredevil Easter egg. Because it looks like a Daredevil Easter egg. It sounds like a Daredevil Easter egg, but it sticks very true. That's the thing I like. It sticks very true to the Turtles' origin from what we know.
Yeah.
You know, which I love. And it's great to see that throughout the years they've kept that origin.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed reading this. And the ending of this comic, it's funny you mentioned that it was supposed to be like a one-off. Because the ending of this comic reminds me a lot of the ending of the first movie. You know, where Shredder's kicked off the roof and he just ends up, quote, dead, but then you know.
I mean, that's the thing, though, is like with how Shredder's was beaten there, it very much reminded me of not only just that first movie, but also how he was beaten in the first movie of the, dare I say it, but the...
the Michael Bay ones.
Bay one,
yes, that's right.
You know, and so, very, very interesting. You know, it stays true to the Shredder story.
It does. It's great, actually. And the whole Orokosaki and Hamato Yoshi and everything, definitely... a great but of course in the cartoon Splinter is Hamato Yoshi, you know, I think, isn't it? And like where
you know, I just watched something I don't remember.
I feel like that, like the rat and him merge and he is Hamato Yoshi, and that's part of the like rivalry between him
like
and Shredder.
There's a bunch of changes that they make.
So of course, and we'll get into that of course later in this at the very end of this. But I think this first issue, it was very nostalgic. But at the same time, not because of the way it's new to me. But you know, the black and white and the way it stays true to the stories that I know, it was a great issue.
You know, you brought up you're talking about the black and white artwork, and it's fantastic. You know, another little factoid I had about this issue that I wanted to mention as well. is that Peter and Laird they try to each work on the drawing. Like they made the story all together, and then they also worked on doing like all the different drawings and stuff together for the most part. The only exception is I don't remember if it's in this issue or another issue, but there's like a really cool like cityscape, and that one's done all by Eastman. But that's like one of the few exceptions where it's like not them all working together. I think it was in this one because that's when they brought it up. As they're like one of the few exceptions was this page where Eastman showed the like the cityscape of the page, which is cool. But yeah, that's why like whenever you see the credits of this, is it doesn't necessarily list who's the writer, who's the artist, it's because they both collaboratively worked on this, which is really cool. Both doing stuff, adding stuff to the writing and the plot of it, and both doing stuff for the visuals that you see on the page. So, which is really cool to see.
Oh yeah,
you know, dynamic duo. That's the word. But yeah, for sure though, like this was indeed was just. I mean, it's just a great issue, and I just find it interesting just how much, you know, of it. You're right. Does seem familiar to us, even though this is like originally like where it came from. But yeah, we'll get into that a bit more though. But it was a very good, familiar first issue, I think. And yeah, I agree. So let's just go on to the next issue now.
Yep.
Second issue, Splinter and the Turtles, or in their lair.
Just lounging about, you know.
Yeah, they're just loud, you know. Well, you know, that's the thing though, is you see Splinter and Leo there, they're just lounging, watching TV, and then you have Raphael and Michelangelo there sparring. But you know, but what's important though is what's on the TV though, is we see Baxter Stockman. He reveals these mousers that it's going to take care of the city's rodent problem. And so the Turtle's like, wait, hold on, isn't there like what's going on here? Rodent, you know, looking at
rodent, you know.
I know, right? But anyway, a few weeks pass, and that's where we got our introduction to April, who's talking with Stockman and is suspicious of the Mousers and the related vault robberies that's being reported on. As Mousers can dig, and supposedly all this stuff is being stolen via tunnels and stuff. And so Stockman then shows April his army of Mousers that he has. Reveals that the robberies are from him. That's how he funded making this army of Mousers. I know, crazy, right?
Shocker.
Shocker. Wait, Shocker's not in this. This isn't a Spider-Man story. But anyway, and then he plans
to weaken. Kid's gonna watch this because I can say something else about a shocker.
Oh wow! He then plans to weaken the foundations of important buildings for ransom, all for fun.
Great
and
plan.
Them. Yeah. What a plan. You know, as he says, it's all for fun, but the money is the byproduct of it all.
Of course, yeah, but yeah, and that's the thing it really shows how crazy Baxter Stockman is.
Yeah, you're right. Whoa. I mean, yeah, I mean, I think this issue in general though, like it really highlighted like how maniacal Stockman is, and I think it's probably the most I've ever cared for Stockman as a villain. I think ever is in this issue, particularly compared to what I've seen him in different, you know, shows or games. I don't think he's really had a big presence in the movies, but
no, in the movies, no.
But
except
like,
the last one, but well, you know,
yeah. Well, that's true though.
You know,
but even then, he wasn't really like that though. No.
No. Yeah, he just created the villain.
Yeah, you know? You're right. Yeah. So you know, awesome highlight of Stockman just overall in this issue though, being a great villain. But that's where April, who's worked with Stockman for many years, as it's revealed here, you know, quite a difference with April's character there, is then dumped into the sewer, where Stockman then sends Mousers after her, but then whack, spatang, and shock, and that's where the Turtles save the day.
Whack, spatang, and shock.
That's the exact.
I know. I'm looking right at it. I know.
Yeah, the Turtles save the day. And,
great onomatopoeia there, though.
Yeah, exactly. And so the Turtles save the day, and seeing that they're turtles, April faints. But April then wakes back up and is properly introduced to Splinter and the Turtles. And that's where on the TV, the news is then being reported that Stockman's ransoming is going
Yep.
on. He's doing his message. He's sending out those messages on the TV right now.
It's funny here
And
because
cuts to the
usually when April wakes up and sees Splinter after she faints from the turtles, she usually faints again in all the origin stories when she sees Splinter.
yeah,
So that's funny here that she
comedic
doesn't.
effect.
And then it's funnier that the origin story is for the origin story of Splinter and the Turtles, see issue number 1 of the Teenage
Yeah,
Mutant
yeah,
Ninja
yeah,
Turtles.
yeah.
1 hour later, you don't see that anymore.
You don't. You're right.
You see repeat paneling and stuff.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah. And then the only other thing we see on the TV is we do see the first building fall that Stockman was threatening to, destroy,
Yeah.
and he's true to his word. Stockman's crazy. He's an evil bastard. But then we do see though that the turtles sneak up on Stockman as April helps him find where he is and all that. But in the commotion of the turtles confronting Stockman, Stockman then presses a button, which is essentially his version of a self-destruct button, which makes all the Mousers head their way, and like none of the controls or anything that's around them there can do anything. So Mikey, Leo, and Raphael, they head out into the sewers there and deal with the Mousers that are heading their way. They specifically like blow up the sewer tunnel there to help stop with the horde coming, and then they take care of whatever's coming out there. Coming up through the rubble and with them digging through and all that. But meanwhile, while that's happening, though, and holding them all off, April and Donatello are trying to figure out a way how to stop the Mousers from within Stockman's lab. And so that's where they then, after showing all these different things, they then find this emergency shutdown program, which they're able to activate. However, the problem is the shutdown goes from least important to most important, with the Mousers obviously being the most important. So as things are looking pretty dire out there, that the other 3 turtles are dealing with the Mousers, they come retreat back in the room. Mousers are starting to dig in. The lights go off. You hear a bunch of noises, or read a bunch of noises, I guess technically, in the dark panels. That was a cool effect there.
Yeah.
But then, everything goes dark, lots of noise, and then the Mousers all get shut down, with the heroes just narrowly surviving.
Yep. Leo goes, I guess it worked. I guess it worked. Another great. It seems like every issue has that one great page, 2-page full panel page, and this one is all Mousers being fought, coming at the turtles. It's really well drawn. Amazing, the shading.
Yeah. Like it's just a special style of the black and artwork, just definitely highly recommend going to look at some of their fantastic art. It's really good.
Yeah, and this is the first issue we really see Donatello do his tech stuff from in the very beginning. That first panel of them in the hanging out, he's working on a chip of some sort, and then we see the second best turtle working with April to try and stop the Mousers.
Second best. All right. Okay. At least you didn't say worst.
Oh, of course not. That's definitely Leonardo.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Well, Raph is the hothead, so everyone loves the hothead, and Leo's just the annoying leader. He's got good weapons, but I mean, Raphs are cooler.
All right. But no, you did bring up a good point though. With it, those like we do start seeing these hints of like each of their personalities in each of these issues as they figure out how they want to develop, and we'll specifically go into one of the turtles' personalities later. But it's interesting though how we see these hints and how they still hold very true too to like how we know of the turtles, even with just these first 2 issues overall, as they're still figuring out even what they want to do, and that's kind of an interesting thing in general of just like. I feel like a lot of comic iterations with some of these group characters, they don't quite know what exactly they're doing right away. Like the first iteration of Doom Patrol, completely different than what Doom Patrol then becomes, and that's what people know of Doom Patrol from the show. Or even X-Men to a degree. Like, yeah, like the Xavier and Magneto stuff remained, but like how you thought of the general team of X-Men was like very different, and with Claremont really making X-Men big and all that, So point is, though, is like you're seeing all this stuff of how they can change, but Turtles, for the most part, I feel like remain very true from these first issues, and still, other than in the darkness of it, because of Nickelodeon buying them and turning more into a kid's property and not really. I mean, they've always had a real sense of darkness in the comics. Like we just talked about Last Ronin, and that's not a happy daisy
not at
story
all. Yeah, it's it's gonna be an R-rated movie, so and an M-rated game, I'm sure. So
yeah, it's and so that's one of the interesting. I mean, but that's the biggest difference, though. But like down to the characters themselves, though, it's like they've for the most part, like those characters still really feel like the characters that we've always known them from those cartoons and stuff, which is really interesting. Which is it's weird though, because it's like, as you're right, for you, this is your first time reading this stuff. I've read this stuff once. Well, these issues in particular I've read before. I haven't read all of them, so like there'll be a point in a couple episodes where it's new territory for me. But but even though I remember feeling what you felt, though, when I first read these, is I was like, well, this is interesting how similar it is to like what we know. I mean, obviously there's the changes that they do for stuff on screen, sometimes works on screen, sometimes doesn't, but like that sense of familiarity, though, like it's just interesting to have that, though, and how true it still is even after all these years of when it originally came out in the 80s.
Yes, and then
84.
we're definitely in the next issue gonna see how 80s this really
You know what?
is.
You're speaking of the next issue. Let's get right on into it then.
Absolutely.
So, picking up from the last issue, is it's like a two-parter kind of here. The turtles escort April out of the sewers and go back to their lair to find it broken into, and inside finding all these broken mousers. Their lair is just completely destroyed. And they see some blood there, and then that's where Splinter's missing. Where's Splinter? And so Raphael then leaves to look for Splinter.
Tale as old as time.
Yeah. Raphael returns later with no luck. And without a lair, the turtles call April for help, where April arrives in her van and starts heading towards her place.
Turtle van, baby, eventually.
Not a turtle van yet, but
eventually, I said, and it's a Volkswagen bus. I love it. It's 80s. So 80s right there is our first. The payphone obviously is the first hint of the 80s. When how they call, and then her writing down the address like that.
Yeah.
And then the Volkswagen bus is the next 80s. All right, continue.
Yeah. You're right though. Seeing the van there was cool. So April leaves in her van, starts heading towards so April picks them up, they start heading towards her place, but then a cop car sees the van, thinking that's part of a robbery that just recently occurred, with a van matching that same description. So there's this big chase scene that occurs, which I remember in their background they were saying they wanted to make the biggest chase scene in all of comics, and so this chase scene was 16 pages long, is the number they referenced back then, or in the stuff. And after all these issues and the collection that we're reading from, Eastman and Laird write some stuff about the like background and stuff. Mainly Eastman, but Laird says a little bit here and there. But Eastman mentioned here, this is like they wanted to do a big chase scene, and that just in all of comics, and he said it was 16 pages was what it ended up to be.
Oh my God. Yeah. Well, and what's great is, so it's, again, here's how 80s it is. We got a Car 54 Where Are You reference, which you've probably never heard of. And it's great that it's like the whole, it's so 80s that, like, these days they wouldn't mistake a car for a robbery. They would, run the plates, they would figure out what car it is. They have all the computers. scan it automatically if they're sitting there looking for someone. Here they're like,
Yeah.
oh my God, it looks like the same one we're looking for. Let's go. We're on it. Let's go. And then they're all like, there's a point where they're like, he wants to shoot at them, and he's like, hey, what are we, the A-team? And he's like, I pity the guy, because they couldn't say I pity the fool because they'd be sued, obviously, And so yeah, it was just a hilarious.
Yeah. Lots of fun action to be had in that big chase scene. That's like almost half the issue there, right? So
Oh, and we had to get a Richard Petty reference as well once the chase is over, who's a legendary race car driver from back in the day.
Yeah, this big. I mean, here's how big the chase scene is, though. It's all in New York City. This is right. So they begin in the streets. They then go off-roading through Central Park. And then back in the streets where they find the other van with the real robbers in it. So
just they have to pull up.
There's the real
robbers. It's like, what?
And they go.
Loved it.
The vans bump each other.
Loved it. It was hilarious.
And then the robbers van flips, and April and the turtles get away. That's how it works.
Hey, move over, Richard Petty. Love it.
But anyway, after that, April takes the turtles to her apartment, which is the only livable one in the building. She mentions
this is convenient.
I know, convenient. Yeah, very convenient, right? And then all the turtles just pass out as they're just tired.
Great.
But we get a epilogue here, though, where we actually get to see Splinter's battle with the Mousers, which is cool to see Splinter in action. He gets away from the lair, but isn't injured in his escape. And as the Mousers are closing in on him, he's thinking it's the end of him. And then all of a sudden, the Mousers just turn away. But then we see a couple of people from TCRI find Splinter. And
don't know what that is, and I'm sure we'll find out eventually.
We will be getting into that for sure. But these TCRI are about to end his life, but then Splinter talks. So that's where they then take him to an infirmary, and that's where he wakes up after several hours, and that's where he tries to escape, but then finds aliens in a nearby room that are just chilling there outside of their human disguises.
Hey, look, it's Krang's.
Yeah. The TCRI aliens, as Eastman dubbed them. Right?
Yeah, I didn't know that like I understand that it was Krang's, but I still don't understand what what does it stand for and stuff like that.
I didn't look into that.
Yeah, I know. I'm sure we'll find out. I'm saying.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm saying is like I was like, whoa, Krang's. That's what I expected him to say. By the souls of my ancestors, I'm like, I knew you would see something weird, and I saw Krang's. I'm like, oh my God, Krang's. What the? Okay.
It gets
what the hell is this TCRI crap?
It gets right into the Krang stuff.
Love it.
Yeah. So we'll definitely be learning more about those in issue 4, which is really interesting. We'll see. As that'll be in our following episode.
Yes. And you've read it, so you know what TCRI is.
Yeah.
But you probably might not remember so well.
Yeah. It was a bit ago when I read it. So
all right, excellent, cool.
But yeah, so it'll be cool to delve into all that though. But as far as this issue specifically goes, I mean, it's mainly it's just a chase scene issue, right? Yes. The issue with the turtles, other than that, there's not much else going with the turtles. It's just they called April and then they crash at her place.
I think the biggest thing for this is really showing Raphael's personality again, where he gets told not to be the one to run off and look for Splinter, and he still he's the one who runs off.
That's true.
And they go looking for him, and he's not back yet, and he just shows up. That's Raph. I think it showed Raph and April, I think, was the two big characters for this issue.
I'd
and
agree.
Leo as well, kind of, because he was barking orders.
We do start seeing
leadership.
Yeah, you do start seeing that.
But Mikey and Donnie were like on it, so we didn't
Yeah,
really
they didn't
see
really
much
have
of them
much.
yet.
No.
Except for we saw Donnie. We haven't seen Mikey yet, really.
That's true.
We have not seen
Yeah.
like the party side, the party dude. We've only seen serious Mikey, which I'm down with, which is why he's my favorite turtle, because you have that serious Mikey, but he knows how to have a good time.
Yeah. So
That's why Donnie is second best.
What we do have here, though, I think that's a good point, though, because with Raphael, that's it's like with him being like that main character. I think that's really inspired what we're going to be talking about next year in a moment.
Yes,
is like they're really figuring out like, oh, this is probably going to lead to a great sort of way to expand on his story, specifically as they figure out what they want to do with his personality, um, which is cool because it's like at this point on, Raphael definitely feels like the most fleshed out turtle of the three we have gotten,
correct.
touched
Yes,
on. And you're right, we haven't really seen anything of Michelangelo up to this point, so we'll see what happens with that as we continue getting into how all these characters originally developed. But we also see Splinter, though. I like the look in the Splinter, though, with this issue. That was cool.
yeah.
And so having his moment in the sun and then teasing a larger story of what's happening next. Which
Shredder.
yeah, with all the Krings will be up next next episode, as we're going to be taking a little bit of a detour. Not really a detour, as it's actually what came out next, not issue 4, as they came up with this idea of micro series. And actually one of the tidbits I had about the micro series, which, because you're probably thinking, wait, there's 3 issues in, and they're doing like other spin-offs. Why are they already doing like spin-offs, essentially, right?
I understand
I
why for
wouldn't
these
necessarily.
ones,
Yeah,
because
but I mean,
yeah.
I just meant in general of like the idea of like, wait, you're only 3 issues in, and like you've already have something clearly set up for what's next. Why are you taking a detour to something else, right? And so what they started doing is they have scattered out micro series, one for each of the turtles.
Yes, that's what
And so first up, we actually have Raphael with his micro series first. And the reason why Eastman and Laird wanted to do them is so we could each have an issue to focus on building their personality. And so that's kind of like what tied into what we were just talking about a moment ago, is like very much feel like, well, since they figured out what they wanted to do for Raphael, that's where they really got this micro series idea. They're like, well, since we know how we want to do his character, here's a great way to highlight his personality in this issue. And that's what we get. And so let's get right into what this micro issue or micro series, as they call it, is about.
Yeah.
Which begins with Raph sparring with Mikey. We see this rage overcome Raph as Mikey beats him, resulting in Raph almost hurting Mikey because of this rage. So Leonardo tells him, "Go out, clear your head. You need to just you need to get your mind back into it."
Mikey goes, Leo, did you see his eyes? Like he was gonna beat his ass. Donnie was like, no, Donnie said that, it looks like. No, that's Mikey. It's Mikey. Yeah.
See, that's the thing, though. That's one thing, though. With the black and white, it's hard to tell who they all were.
Well, no, the weapons. I can see
the weapons, though, too. But just generally, you have those color indicators whenever you,
yes,
everyone knows them on screen, right? But then when you actually first see them colored ever on the covers, which I don't remember what issue they started having it colored on, but when you start seeing them all colored, they all were red, which,
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So even then, they didn't have the color thing. I don't know when the color thing specifically came up.
I'm sure we'll find out.
We'll find out.
Yeah.
So, but yeah. We cut to the introduction of Casey Jones, though.
Yes.
Where he's just lounging there watching a cop show. But then he grabs his hockey mask and bag of bats and golf bag.
His
sports stuff. But that's where he then leaves and he finds these 3 gang members that he starts beating up. However, Raphael then hears this commotion and he's watching and he just sees Casey there continuing to beat them up with no indication of letting them down. So Raphael interferes and because he's like, you're beating them, you can kill them if you don't stop. The turtles there don't want to kill people; they just want to help out. Like they just want to do the good right thing. Your standard sort of vigilante, like yeah, they'll beat them up, but like they don't want to kill, murder on the streets. So that results in Raphael and Casey Jones now fighting. So they have this cool. They fight for a bit, and then that's get to a point where it looks like Raphael won, but then Casey hits him with this big surprise swing, where Casey's unable to escape and leaves Raphael a little bit dazed. Casey then finds another crime where he's about to go too far with his beating, but then Raphael is able to interfere again, which then leads to another chase scene that leads to Casey luring Raphael into Central Park for another battle, and then that's where their big main battle is. We had that little appetizer with round 1 earlier in the issue, but then round 2 they went all out here in round 2.
Yeah, well, and then Raph didn't think he was gonna have a chance because he's like, oh no, we're on his turf.
Yeah,
I gotta really step up my game, and
yeah.
but he ended up winning.
Then Raph ends up, because Casey tries to flee after he realizes he's not winning this fight, and then but this time though he didn't get that swing of days, I guess, or whatever you want to call it. I don't know. Where I don't know. I don't have a good name for it, but but this time though, Raphael is able to catch Casey as he's running away, and but then they come. They have an interesting little conversation. We'll get into that in a moment, though. But the issue ends though where they hear somebody crying for help, so then they team up.
Yep,
and that's the end.
We don't see the team up yet.
We don't see the team up yet, but this is a really cool issue though to highlight Raphael's personality with what we're talking about at the beginning with the rage and him not being able to stop, getting too into the moment, but then it's really interesting though, because with the introduction of Casey Jones here, where he also is suffering from that same thing, and that's how Raph is seeing that, and
he's like, oh my God, I can't be that person.
Yeah. But then that conversation at the end there of what Casey says there, like I don't necessarily want to call it a conversation because it's like they didn't really have it back and forth, but he says what he says here. I'm pulling it up here. Is like, yeah, right, I'm crazy, but something tells me you ain't above taking somebody out if they tick you off. And then Raph's like, yeah, I have a temper, true, but at least I try to control it. You don't. And but it's like, well,
and he realized that he went too far, but he realized he went too far with Mikey, and he was mad at himself from the beginning. He's like, that's my best friend. What am I doing?
That's true.
So he really figures it out early on enough, catching his breath, getting air, that he's able to, because he's realized that, help somebody else. And I love that we've already gotten Casey Jones. I love that he's a character this early on in the series, because he is such a big character. I mean, I wonder if they're going to do the whole him and April thing, because, obviously in Last Ronin, so I don't know if that starts in the original runs or if that's something that they pick up later.
Yeah, we'll find out.
We'll find out. So, but I love Casey Jones as a character. He's a very damaged guy. He's been through a lot. He obviously has a special place in my heart because of the sports gear connection. He's always been probably my favorite character since I was a kid.
That's awesome.
So, I know it's a Ninja Turtles series and show, but Casey Jones was always my favorite character.
That's cool. That's awesome.
And so again, very glad we got him. And seeing Raph again, he's my third favorite turtle for reasons. I mean, it's hard to, when we rank these turtles, it's so close, that it's, but I'm glad we got Raph out of the way. I don't know, I forget who the second one is that we'll get in the other micro issue. But yeah, Casey Jones, so excited that he's already in the series.
Yeah, that's awesome that they introduce him early on. I agree. And just setting up so much of the stuff that we just normally know. Um, just right off the bat here with these first 4 issues that they put out. These first 4 issues. I mean, just to recap, like we have obviously all the Turtles and Splinter, but then we get like April, we get Shredder, we get the Foot. Um, we have
Krang.
Baxter Stockman, we have those Krangs starting to come about, the Mousers and all that.
Yeah.
And then here Casey Jones. That's a lot, I feel like, for 4 issues.
Yes.
Now, it is important to say, though, even though we're just going through talking about all these issues pretty quickly, most of these issues, this is the one exception, I think, because this one's only 19 pages long, I see here.
Yep.
Or 20 pages, actually. But,
yeah. The last panel,
the other
panel, so
issues
like,
are about just under 40 pages. Like, they're thicker issues than your normal one.
Yeah.
But they're still pretty quick to read because of how action-packed they are.
And yeah, it's a lot of them have larger text on the bubbles, and it's a lot, like a lot of the panels are, two like I'm looking at the panel, the Casey Jones Raphael. I mean, some of the panels are 2 lines, so yeah. So like you said, a lot of action, a lot of onomatopoeias, folks. Learn that word.
Well, that's one thing about this too, is that it's very action-packed, and something that I find interesting is, this came out in the 80s. I believe it was the first issue 83, I think 84. One of those 2 years was when it began, I believe. But what I find interesting though is, nonetheless, like, you're talking about, this is a pure 80s property that came about, and when you compare it to other writing in the 80s, at least stuff that I think of right off the bat, it's not as wordy as a lot of that stuff. And I think, but a big part of that being specifically, I think, how action-packed these issues are. So, but yeah, just when comparing it to other 80s comics I read, that's something I found interesting. But yeah, in particular, this issue was cool though. Is I like seeing the mirrored characteristics between Raphael and Casey Jones here was neat, but also highlighting their characters' differences, and it was a good way to delve in specifically into Raph's character, as well as introduction to your favorite character. So that's awesome. Something else interesting about your character, though, that I want to share is Eastman said he wanted a guy to choose what he did because he watched too many bad cop shows. Specifically referencing there as well, just like what Laird would watch all the time or something.
So
like
that's probably where the Car 54 "Where Are You" reference came from as well. I'm sure.
But yeah, and then specifically here, Eastman says he came up with a hockey mask and baseball bats, and then Laird added the golf bag.
And there's also a golf club and a field hockey stick.
Yeah. This is just
got
specifically
but yeah, the weapons he has a hockey stick, a field hockey stick, because when he says 4 and hits him in the face with it, it's a field hockey stick. Where is that panel?
Yeah, there's a bunch of them.
There it is. Yeah, that's a golf club. Okay.
Yeah.
But he does have, it looks like a field hockey stick, that curved one.
I
believe is the
noticed that right
stick.
Away though, when with his character, he really doesn't really use it yet.
He has not used it yet, but it's definitely going to be interesting. So, and he doesn't have the hockey stick yet, though.
Yeah,
he has the golf bag. He's got the baseball bat, the golf club, and he does use the hockey stick. What happened to it? Oh, it's there. He must have dropped it when he got his ass beat, because you don't see it in the bag anymore at certain points. I guess it's hard to tell.
Well, no, I see it. I see it very clearly at one point, but then you don't see it near the end.
Yeah, exactly. It's weird a little bit. Again,
maybe a little bit.
You can't nitpick consistencies like that on 2 guys sitting in their apartment drawing comic. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm saying one point here earlier in the bag you don't see it, but then later you do, and then you don't again. So it's
Yep.
little weird
Exactly. It's
inconsistent.
so weird.
Yeah, and here's the thing though, we wouldn't care if it didn't later become his signature weapon. That they probably had no thought about this being his weapon. Right now, he's the
Yeah.
guy with the double baseball bats. Is all their
Yes,
thought is,
exactly.
and so
Exactly.
you know, it's a little that's interesting there though, as I didn't recognize that till after I was just scrolling through there just now. I was like, wait a moment, huh? That's interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it was a cool micro,
Very cool micro issue. Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
micro series issue there.
Micro
So,
series issue. Yeah.
but yeah, that was a very good first four issues though. Introduction to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Do you have anything specific about the issues to bring?
Well, I think the biggest thing for me is, we talked about throughout this past hour or so that how it stayed true to the stories of the Turtles, Casey Jones. April's different.
Yeah, that
The
is the biggest
origin
difference.
story for April is different, and I kind of like that this origin story better than her being like just a ditzy reporter.
Yeah,
Because I wonder, I'm not trying to be all like, oh, empowering of women, but it would have been cool to have an April O'Neil in the 90s on the cartoon like that, who's
yeah,
the nerd, worked for a scientist, for little girls to look up to. And then maybe the demographic of Ninja Turtles would have been. I know it's a huge franchise. Don't get me wrong. There's plenty of people who love Ninja Turtles, but it just makes me wonder what it could have done for
sure.
like STEM in the
Yeah.
90s,
Hmm.
especially. So I really like this origin story. Um, we haven't really seen her have an origin story like this. I know in the cartoon, the recent animated movie, April was more like the tech nerd kind of high schooler
Yeah,
tech
going
nerd.
going back, staying a little truer,
Yeah,
a bit truer to
little
this.
truer to it. So
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see if that movie does any sequels, how
Yeah.
she evolves and grows.
Yeah, 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 indeed.
And how she evolves and grows in this series, being that nerd and scientist
Yeah, it'll be
kind of
it'll, it'll be interesting to
character rather
see.
than
Well,
um
her character is going to take a big change too, though, as she's without a job now. She has to
oh,
go find a job.
absolutely. Yeah,
So
she's
that's
unemployed.
a big point there too.
Huge.
We'll
Gotta go
see.
find a job. I wonder if then she goes and becomes a reporter,
Yeah,
and
I don't exactly
we'll
remember.
see.
So we'll see. We will find
Yeah.
out in
Yes, we will.
next episode.
Yep.
But uh, just overall though, I think April was the biggest of these characters that was kind of different than what we traditionally think about them.
Hmm.
Uh, but like everyone else, the turtles of what we saw of their personalities felt like what we know of them. Even though they're still being developed and being figured out, we got that hint of Donatello being a tech nerd as well. We got that hint of, well, we did get a bit of Raphael's character, and that whole issue though with Raphael going off on his own just now that we just talked about was very true to what we know of Raphael from what I've seen of the cartoons and stuff,
Yeah.
which is cool.
Agreed.
And then we do get to see Leo be a little bit of a leader in these issues as well, kind of sprinkled throughout. Especially in that last one, though, as he, as you're talking about, he was barking orders at them and trying to
And of
lead
course,
them into
Raph didn't listen.
Raph didn't listen,
First words out of Raph's mouth was no.
no, I'm not doing it.
No.
Not doing what I want to do.
Yep.
So, but yeah, no, it's interesting though, of like how all these characters very much are like, we're talking about here, like we're constantly we're comparing them to like the cartoons and movies and such, since that's how the majority of people would probably or introduced to the turtles.
Yes.
But this is where they came from, and this is it's just interesting to see like how true that they really stuck with the source material.
Yeah, I wonder because I mean I was like 1 year old when this came out, so
A little bit
I
graphic for a
wonder.
1-year-old.
Yeah, I was reading these comics at one. I was gifted. Just not really. People don't believe everything you hear on the internet. But I wonder what it was like being introduced to them before any of the other media existed
Yeah,
like
yeah.
this. And being like,
Yeah, that'd be
whoa, this is some crazy shit, man. Because I guarantee you a lot of people like me and you
interesting.
were buying this when they saw on the cover. Because again, it's very street level, and street level
Yeah.
superheroes people love. Because you can
Yeah.
relate to them more. And so I'm sure like we read in those little segments at the end of each issue, these issues flew off the shelves.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's just one of those things of just new property at the right time and
Yes.
giving you a sense of something different. Of like, it definitely feels different than other '80s comics, and not necessarily trying to be like another, you know, just another group of another Batman story or Daredevil story. Since it takes a lot of elements from that stuff, but just
Does.
makes it its own thing. As they do reference how they take aspects from certain things before then trying to taking aspects coming off the heels of we were talking about Daredevil earlier, just when they would have been forming this idea is just around when Frank Miller's Daredevil run would have just started, which
Oh.
was a huge, like, that was like the huge transformational point in Daredevil. Like, Daredevil wasn't
Oh.
necessarily huge when he first came out, but when what Frank Miller did to Daredevil is why you think of Daredevil the way he is now. And
Got
so,
you. Well,
uh,
there you go. So there's that inspiration right
yeah,
there. So
yeah, a
I'm
bit of that
sure.
inspiration was from that, and they even name dropped that too, in
Okay,
one of
yeah.
those bits too,
Perfect.
of
Well, it
Miller's
feels
story.
very Daredevil. It
Yeah,
does.
yeah, yeah,
Some
yeah.
of
You
those
see the
scenes, like the
inspiration.
scene in the sewer with all the mousers coming at them,
Yeah.
feels very Daredevil.
Well, that's the big
The
thing though too.
rooftop with the foot soldiers, very Daredevil.
Well, I mean, this is the time when comics would start getting a little darker.
Yeah.
Like, well, I mean, they don't get completely like really dark, I feel like, until like the '90s, but like this when they start taking
Mm-hmm.
that turn of this isn't your happy sort of just
Superman,
bam
truth
bam
and
pow.
way,
Yeah, yeah.
justice in the American way.
Mhm,
Yeah, truth,
yeah,
justice in the
yeah,
American way.
it's
Yeah.
yeah, it's when we start seeing that turn
It's
and that
not
kind of
goofy
thing. So
Batman, Adam West.
yeah, yeah, it's not that stuff. It changes a bit. So yeah.
Yeah.
Really cool to see all that though.
Yes.
So
Agreed.
it's a very cool first set of issues, and so I was really happy to cover these. I'm looking forward to
Me too.
checking out more of these as we continue to go down the adventure of reading these a lot of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle comics in general, but specifically these different Eastman and Laird issues are going to be awesome to
Mm-hmm.
continue reading and you know talking about. So looking forward to it. Um,
Likewise.
but yeah, excellent episode of Shell Talk here. Where can the people? I'll leave the
Well,
link
all
for
I
you.
want to say is just make sure this coming weekend you head on over to Red Shirts Remastered starting on Thursday, February 27th for the Streamathon for Rare Disease Day, which is February 28th. We're going to be streaming for lots of hours between February 27th and March 2nd, raising money for FMF and AID Global Association because it is Rare Disease Day. And I have FMF, Familial Mediterranean Fever. I am rare.
We'll
Hashtag I
be
am rare.
talking about more of that on an episode of the Comic Den, so be sure to check that out. But also, be sure to just subscribe to Red Shirts Remastered as well whenever we also do other charity stuff there and just whatever other stuff we do over there. Link down below, as well as be sure to just subscribe here to the Dingus Den for all other content, comic news, and conversations and all that going on here. But until then, see you all later. Bye.
Cowabunga!
Cowabunga, dude.